There's a story that's not being told, the story of Jerusalem, Judea and Samaria. The world has condemned it as the occupied West Bank. Could it be the biblical and historical heartland of Israel? Hear the miraculous stories of true pioneers who have dedicated their lives to the restoration of this land. Discover what's being hidden by mainstream news and media. Experience extraordinary places that few people even know exist. Join us for the Joshua and Caleb Report, stories from the heartland of Israel.
Hey guys, we're back with the Joshua and Caleb Report. We've got Josiah Hilton in the back seat, along with my daughter Kaya back there as well. She's joined the crew today, and of course, you know Josh and I. But hey, we are going to see a lady by the name of Sondra Baras. Now, Sondra Baras is one of those characters that you definitely feel in the first 2 minutes of speaking with her that she has a mission for her life. And we're going to go connect to that mission. She's been a mover and shaker here in the Samaria region, connecting Christians from around the world to the communities of Judea and Samaria and inspiring them to participate in supporting and undergirding these guys to get these communities established here in the area. So it's going to be really fun to hear her story. Josh, anything to add to that?
Yeah, Sondra Baras is definitely a woman who knows exactly what she's tasked to do, and she's doing a fantastic job at what she does in bringing people to connect to the heartland of Israel. So, I don't know, I think it goes right along with the Josh and Caleb Report here. Sondra Baras definitely has a story. We're looking forward to sharing that story with you guys. Here you go, grab the side. Yeah, it's unlocked. Whoa. You ready?
All right, guys, we're here with Sondra Baras. She runs an organization called the Christian Friends of Israeli Communities. Sondra, it's awesome to be here with you. We want to go, before we get into what you're doing as a mission, we want to go back into your personal story. Just fill us in on maybe that first journey of what got into you to bring you here.
Okay. Well, as you can tell from my accent, I'm American. I was born in Cleveland, Ohio, and grew up there. There's a very strong Jewish community there. Grew up in an Orthodox Jewish home. So the values that I represent today are values that I grew up with. Studying the Bible, keeping the commandments. These are all things that I was born into and was committed to from a very young age. So part of that is Israel. I came to Israel for a year between high school and college and studied Bible in Jerusalem. And it was a very critical year for the settlement movement. Their focus at that point was here in Samaria. We'd heard about it, we'd seen about it. Every time they had some kind of effort, the government or the army or whatever made them leave. Well, it was December of 1975, and suddenly, I don't know exactly how it happened. I guess historians later analyzed it, but sitting there, it just happened. You know, all of a sudden there was this real groundswell of support for this idea. And thousands of people turned out. It was during Hanukkah. Thousands of people turned out to make their way towards a place called Sebastia. And I was supposed to go too, and it was almost like everybody knew about it, but it was secret. Like the whole world was going to be there, but you weren't supposed to tell anybody. Thousands of people were there. And at that point, Yitzhak Rabin was the prime minister, Shimon Peres was the minister of defense. It was Shimon Peres, amazingly, who signed the compromise that enabled 30 families to settle in an army camp called Kadum. 2 weeks later, I went with a couple of friends out to what was then called Kadum, to this army camp, and spent Shabbat there. And it was like, when I think about it now, here I am like this American kid. We had no telephone connection with our parents. Our parents had no idea what we were doing.
And if they knew, what would they do?
Thank God none of us were doing drugs or drinking. We were just settling the land, that was our big crime, right? It was amazing though. We went out, we were told, go to Kfar Saba, wait on this corner, and someone will drive by and pick you up. And I think what they meant is stand there and eventually someone will drive by and you'll hitch a ride out with. We thought someone was picking us up. So anyway, we're standing there at this bus stop on some corner in Kfar Saba, and we'd been there for about an hour. It was getting dark. It was winter. And someone finally stops by and says, you waiting for a ride out to Kaduma? We said, yeah. Ooh, well, I don't know if I have room, but try. He was driving this little teeny car, like the size of a Volkswagen Beetle or something, okay, piled to the ceiling with boxes. He says, if you can find space to get in, it's yours. And we did. You cannot imagine. I was sitting like this, you know. And he took us out on this road that at the time was this single lane road without a single light, not a single street light, nothing. And driving through a lot of nothing. You know, people tell you the Jews, they came in and they took the land from the Palestinians and they went into densely populated. I mean, there wasn't a street light. There wasn't a city. And we get to this army camp, and we spent the Shabbat there, and it was such an amazing experience. And when I go back and trace my involvement in the settlement movement, I have to start it there. Because then I was 18 years old, and I was myself a flaming Zionist and very idealistic. So it just kind of, okay, sure, yeah, we got to settle land, we settle land. When I look back and I realize these people are only a few years older than me, they were like 23, 25, and they changed the world. They literally changed the world. And they came out to something that looked ridiculous. You know, a few people in an army camp, and you can say, oh, okay, what are you going to accomplish? You're standing up against the whole world. You're standing up against the Israeli government. Like, what are you accomplishing? And they did. They really did, because they understood that there was an ideological, biblical core, that all they needed to do was strike the chord that would touch that core. Yeah. And it would open up a wellspring that was just waiting to be tapped.
It's so fascinating for me to hear your connection and the Jewish connection. But I think what's going to intrigue our audience even greater in some ways is kind of you've been working for a number of years in the Christian community. And your whole organization basically is connecting Christians to the reality of what's taking place here in Judea and Samaria. How has that been received? And like, what has been the journey? I mean, I can imagine for you as a Jewish person, and obviously Josh and I have worked in this area for the past 12 years of working from the opposite direction. But it seems like there is an alliance that's taking place between the Christian and Jewish communities around the world right now towards the good. And now I'd be fascinated to hear from your perspective. And then we'll jump into kind of what you're doing now, and how that is, impacting the communities of Judea and Samaria. But so what has been your involvement there?
Well, very shortly after moving here, I became involved in advocating for Judea and Samaria. Christianity and Christians were very far from my, worldview, from my existence. I just had no exposure of any serious nature to Christians. And at some point, though, as I became more involved in advocating for Judea and Samaria, focusing on Jewish audiences, focusing on the secular media, here and there, Christian individuals or groups came my way. So I began to be exposed to who these people are and found in them a very interesting partner on this. And it was from that this whole idea of Christian Friends of Israeli Communities grew, because every time I would speak to a Jewish secular audience or to media, I was downplaying the biblical significance because I needed to speak in a vocabulary and focusing on issues that they could more easily relate to. So first of all, very often instead of talking about a biblical connection to Judea and Samaria, we talk about historical connection or national connection to Judea and Samaria. And of course, we focus much more on issues of security and strategic importance of Judea and Samaria, and less on, this idea of redemption. And then I meet these Christians for whom biblical concepts and redemption mean far more than, how many missiles each side has. And I found that very refreshing. And that was really the beginning. And I thought, this opportunity literally fell in my lap, and I was asked to get this going, and I did.
Why is it important for a Christian to connect to Judea and Samaria and to Israel as a whole?
Well, you read the Bible and you see that God has laid out a blueprint for the way he wants the world to be. Part of which he set up already, and part of which is a process that the world is supposed to be moving towards. For whatever reason, he chose the Jewish people to be the shofar, in a way, the mouthpiece of that message. He gave us the Bible. From us, that Bible went to whoever wanted to read it. And he chose us to be the focal point of his redemptive plan for the universe. And as a result, anybody who believes in God and who believes in the word of the Bible, it would seem to me that they would want to get in on that process. Now, there are people who take that desire to be on the process a little too far. We have these, what I like to call Jewish wannabes. You know, I want to be a Jew, I want to live in Israel, or whatever. And I very much appreciate the passion that is behind that. But there is a very set role for the nations. And the nations are there to nurture us. I think in Isaiah, I think it's in 60, if I'm not mistaken, they talk about, assistance at the nations and the ships of Tarshish. And there's different types of expressions of that, nations assisting. Yeah. There is clearly a role for the non-Jews.
Right. So I think it's phenomenal that you're given even a platform where Christians can connect. And that you've actually had success with that is another miraculous thing.
So the question is, what do you do? What is the mission, the vision, the dream of Christian Friends of Israeli Communities?
Okay, well, actually, we're involved in 3 different things. One is education.
Okay.
Coming into churches and congregations and communities and giving them a personal understanding and turning these people who have met us personally into our ambassadors. We're also involved in tourism, and that, of course, feeds into the educational goal. Evangelical Christians are the most important tourist group coming into Israel today, and they number hundreds of thousands. And we are getting to as many as we can and convincing them to include time in Judea and Samaria as part of their itinerary. And so we set up tour programs, tour experiences for these groups coming in. We also have some of our own tours. And the third thing is raising financial support. It's no secret that there are a lot of needs in the communities. And unfortunately, many of the philanthropies that support projects throughout Israel boycott the communities in Judea and Samaria for political reasons. So there really is a role. I mean, whether it's helping with security and emergency needs, or things for children, education, children with special needs, senior citizens, needy families. I mean, the whole gamut. We have received these requests from the communities themselves. We are able to put them out before our Christian friends, and they support.
And I love how it's the hands-on, it's the practical things in the communities, the necessities, really.
Exactly. And they can be small projects, and they can be huge projects.
Right. That's amazing.
And an amazing thing about you is, and I admire you massively for this, is that your organization is not this massive, huge entity where you're almost untouchable in a sense of like this, you're there for people. And what you just stated to us is, put my email out there. I want people to email me directly with, ideas of how they would like to connect with what we're doing. And obviously we'll put your website out there and stuff. But truthfully, it all is about relationships. It's about connecting to the core. And so I say to you guys, the truth is that we've got to connect to the reality of what's taking place here in the heartland of Israel. And Sondra Baras and her team is an amazing way to get connected. They host tours, she speaks, and so if your tour group's coming to Israel, request your tour leader to say, hey, I want to meet Sondra Baras while we're there, and they will arrange to have her maybe come speak with you guys, maybe jump on your bus for a half hour or an hour, or whatever way it works out. But guys, we've got to get connected to this massively overlooked subject, and that is the subject of Samaria. So guys, this has been awesome. Sondra, thank you for your time on this.
Thank you.
And let's keep dreaming, okay? Awesome.